Thank you guys for joining me for yet another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am excited to have my next guest. I have Jesse Cruz here, and we actually got connected. I think it was through Clubhouse, right, Jesse?
Yes.
He is an author and a speaker, and quite a story that we have had the opportunity to have him share on Clubhouse in our Elephant Strategy Club. And I'm excited to have him here today to kind of talk about his book and some of the things that he's doing. But before we get into that, I want to give him the opportunity to introduce himself.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jesse Cruz. I'm a professional speaker. I'm a storytelling coach, best-selling author, but more importantly, I'm a man of faith. I'm a husband, and I'm a dad.
Love that. And storytelling coach, we hear a lot about that with what's your story and making content and post on social media. So why would you think someone needs to have a coach for that?
Well, first and foremost, I think that most people have an amazing life story,
Mm-hmm.
but half the people who have one don't think that they do. And the second half, if they do think they have a good life story, the second half, they don't have the confidence to share it. So that's
Mm-hmm.
the challenge, is having someone that can teach you the techniques and strategies on how to tell your story in a compelling way that makes an impact and makes a difference, not only healing yourself, but helping other people heal from their pain. To me, it's a necessary thing to do, is to have a coach teach you those strategies and how to be effective in sharing your story, because your story is your power and it's time to take your
Mm-hmm.
power back.
I love that. And, I definitely resonate with that because I think sometimes there is a lot of judgment. So, for example, I didn't even know you were a story coach, but I went to this event. It was a vision board event. And we had an author who came and introduced herself and she spoke. And so part of her intro was, well, I used to be a prostitute. And so everybody's looking around because, she's this author talking positive. And she said, I wasn't on a street corner or anything. I was a single mom. I dated some guys, did what I had to do to survive. And I can say that now with a conviction because I'm not that person anymore. So I think so many of us attach ourselves to our stories to where there's that element of shame or guilt or whatever that is associated with this. So how do people transform from just being in a space to where their story is a part of their journey rather them not actually representing their story? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think part of that is accepting the challenging, the dark, the ugly chapters of your story,
Mm-hmm.
understanding that you did the best that you could do during that time in the chapter that you were in, looking back on that chapter of your life and understanding that's just one part of the story and that's not the conclusion of the story. And although you cannot change the rough draft part of your story, which has already happened, you can rewrite this current chapter that you're on and have a good conclusion at the end of your life and at the end of your story. So it's understanding the difference between certain chapters don't define your life. You do,
Mm-hmm.
not the chapter.
I love that. And then, there's also this element of forgiveness, not just always forgiving others, but forgiving yourself. What tips or mindset thinking would you like to offer the audience about ways that they can forgive themselves?
So I think truly forgiving yourself is one of the most challenging things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the strategies that I've learned over the years is that if I want to forgive myself, I got to be bold enough to talk about the things that I did,
Mm.
even if I'm ashamed of them, even if I'm not proud of them. Kind of like the person you just mentioned in your story, she boldly declared something that she did that she's not proud of. And
Mm-hmm.
that literally every time a person tells their story, another chain breaks that was been trying to imprison them from their past. So
Mm.
even if it's the same story you have to tell over and over and over again, every time you tell it with more conviction, you tell it with more freedom, you tell it with more breakthrough. So continuously, honestly sharing the pain points that you've gone through in your story and talking about them in a way that provides therapeutic healing to yourself.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so my next question is, you have your story, you get known for your story. How do you balance the whole thing of being an overcomer of your story? Because like if I talk about depression, I mean, am I going to really have this sense where, oh, here we go again, we're talking about depression? How do you balance talking about it and then showing the overcoming part of it? Does that make sense?
Could you rephrase that question? I want to make sure I'm answering that question
So,
right.
like, it's seeing yourself as a thriver after this experience. Sometimes if we tell our story, there's this element of people having pity or feeling like it's heavy. But how do you tell it in a way that shows your strength and doesn't bring people down all the time? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I believe that's the difference in from telling your story from a place of you're still wounded and from a
Mm-hmm.
place from your scars. So early on when I would share my message, the wound was still ripped open. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't emotionally mature enough and responsible enough to share my story without a complete breakdown. You know what I mean? So I was sharing it from a place of, and I still have painful moments. That pain
Mm-hmm.
is still going to be with me, but I was sharing it from a place of pain rather than a place of healing. And so the more
Mm-hmm.
that you share your story, the more that you will heal. And so I always recommend people, if you're going to share your story, make sure that you understand that you have to be from a certain distance from the time the event happened.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get into a space where you can tell it, not completely objectively, because you can't, because it's part of your story, but
Mm-hmm.
understanding that you can tell your story without a complete emotional breakdown. And let me tell you what, there's sometimes when I still tell my story, it still hits me and it still hurts. And that's okay to have some level of emotion and passion in your story. I recommend that. But also being able to use it to a way that lifts people up and encourage them to know that you are the proof that you can heal from anything if you choose to.
I love that. And so many people see breaking down, having these moments of being emotional as a sign of weakness. Talk to us about how sharing our story can be very therapeutic, not only for us, but it also can be a lifeline to those that are listening to the story.
I think people have to be strong enough to be weak. I
Mm,
think that's the key is when you see somebody who's vulnerable and real enough talk about this is what happened, this is what's been done to me, or this is what I've done,
mhm,
and yet I'm still working on myself every single day, not using it as an excuse. Although it gives you reasons as to why I am the way that I am or do the things that I do, it's not an excuse, it's a reason. And
mhm,
understanding that my healing is still in process. And I think that when people accept that, you know what, I've made some mistakes or some tragic things have happened to me, and they decide to heal anyways, then nobody can really stop that person.
mhm. That's awesome. Now, so talk to us about your book, how you were able to, what this book has done for you. And, tell everybody what your book is about because we hadn't even got into that. So, you wrote a book. Tell us the story of the book and what it has done for you as a result of taking that extra step of, capturing those moments in a book rather than just sharing your story, with everybody that you meet.
Absolutely. So the name of my book is Losing Faith, Finding Hope. And the reason why it's titled that is because my daughter's name is Faith. And so not only was my daughter, she was born prematurely,
Mhm.
and her being born prematurely, I could hold her in the palm of my hand. She was only 1 pound. And so every day I would watch her struggle to live. And
Mhm.
so from that experience, it was extremely traumatic because I would watch her do well one day, and then the next day she would flatline right in front of me, and then
Mhm.
they would rush in and save her life, only to later on she flatlines again, and then she would recover. And so this was a daily occurrence in the hospital. I would literally watch my daughter die in front of my eyes, not knowing if she's coming back.
Wow.
And you can imagine the emotional roller coaster that brought into my life every single day, just not knowing. And then, you know, after 42 days of her fighting, she flatlined for the final time.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you what, not only did I lose my daughter that day, I lost my faith in God that day because I thought, how could a loving, powerful, just God allow this to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a lot of questions that were unanswered and a lot of pain that was stored up within me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just straying from God and not having my child with me and being completely devastated and crushed. And I truly believe when a traumatic event happens, people make two choices. They either let it destroy their life or let it rebuild their life. And for a season, it was destroying my life. It was destroying my marriage. It was destroying my mental health. I was out of control and I was dysfunctional for a long time. But the hope, how I found the hope, which is the second half of the title, how I found the hope was in the healing of heaven, the healing of the story, the healing of knowing that I'll see her again. And I believe hope stands for helping other people every day. And how do you help other people every day? You do that by sharing your story. And I would keep sharing my story. And every time I would share it, I'd get more confident. I'd get more strength. I'd get more healing. And I'd have more freedom. I believe your story sets you free. And every time I tell it, I got more healing and more freedom every single time. And so that's the story of losing faith, finding hope, that even on the worst moment of your entire life, the worst tragedy you can imagine is that you can still get some form of hope if you choose to heal. And the final stage of healing really is helping other people heal from something similar. And that's what I decided to do by writing the book and coaching people and speaking on stages, because I don't want people to ever have to feel like they have to go through some traumatic event by themselves.
I love that. And and so it sounds like your strength just grows the more you tell the story and things of that nature. And it's really a paradox, how that happens, because oftentimes it's like, if you get a shot in your arm, you don't want anybody to touch it, because it's real sensitive. But as you tell your story, it just really is one of strength. It's like a muscle that you're building. So, talk to us about how you were able to make that transition, because you go from feeling maybe hopeless with everything that's happening to having hope. What was it that just was a light bulb transition? How did that change take place?
Well, for me, it started with writing every single day. I
Mm-hmm.
think that no matter who you are, what you've gone through, I think writing down your thoughts, ideas, and feelings is a good way to organize what's going on in your brain. And I think that's what it helped me to accomplish. And so I would write every single day. And that writing, I would take literally a pen to paper and write into a notebook until I filled it up from cover to cover. I wrote every single day. And writing is what helped me process what I just went through.
Mm-hmm.
And so that writing is what got me going. Obviously, rebuilding my relationship with God, having my wife, my children, people that I love, a supportive network of people who were really invested in me and my family and wanted us to heal, seeking out professional help. I think all those things were factors. And then me deciding that there's no way I'm not gonna share this story with the world.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And you mentioned you know um getting a therapist and getting some help. And that's one of the things about interviews. You're talking and your mouth does get dry. But so you mentioned getting help, and this was something that I struggled with on my journey of depression, because I thought asking for help was a sign of weakness, or I didn't really know how to ask for help. So walk us through that whole process. How did you know when you had to get help, who you could talk to, that type of thing? Because that really can be a challenge for a lot of people, coming to terms with that.
Well, it was either seek, self destruct. I mean,
Mm,
that's kind of the place where I was at. It was
mm-hmm,
it was either if I don't go get help, I can't help anybody. I
mm,
can't help my wife. I can't help my kids. I can't even help myself. So I think people think about counseling and therapy as it's something for like weak people.
right.
But I think it takes a certain special kind of strength to say, I need help, please help me, and to
Mm.
admit it boldly and proudly. So I think people got to get to that breaking point.
Definitely, because I mean, was this your first experience where you needed to get this kind of help before?
So that was my first like I've never had a significant loss before.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it hit me like a ton of bricks because I'd
Mm-hmm.
never lost anybody close to me, and it happened to be one of the closest people my entire life is when it
Right.
happened. So that was very hard for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first time where I needed to get like, I mean, I was in all kinds of group therapy, support groups. It was a lot.
That's a blessing. I mean, and I think that's very encouraging for a lot of people because we are suffering a lot of grief right about now. Some people have family members, through this whole pandemic, and, they're grieving jobs and the way things used to be, not to minimize that or anything, but so many people are experiencing a loss they've never experienced before. So it's very encouraging to see that, help is out there and that it is something that they can survive and thrive beyond.
Absolutely. And it's like, it's interesting because I don't think people think about the help that's available until they're
Mhm,
in a position where they need it.
mhm.
And unfortunately, I truly believe everybody needs counseling.
Amen.
But the sad part is we wait till our life is crumbling and crashing down
Mhm,
before we seek it. And
mhm.
truthfully, it should have been we should have been seeking it out all along.
Right. Well, and I think it's just like having certain tools that can help you to prevent things from being overwhelming, or, how to process things, how to think through things, because, life throws us curveballs quite frequently, you know?
Yeah, and you never know when the next curve's coming. No
Mhm,
matter what, you could have the best job, the best family, the best everything. And
mhm.
at any given moment, something can happen and flip your whole world upside down. Now, what are you going to do about it?
So true. Now, so what are some things that you do now in terms of, I love the fact that you're a story coach. I mean, that's something I'm sure that definitely helps you kind of keep that freshness about realizing the importance of your story. But what are some other things that you do in your routine to help you with this new mindset and navigate through that with the issues of life?
Well, there's a few things that I do every single day that are
Mhm,
literally life changing for me, and I do them every day. So, my morning routine is, I start off with reading.
mhm,
That gets my mind focused. It gets me in a state of ready to learn and receiving. I pray. I
mhm,
write. Those are all habits that I developed. Another really big one is gratitude. I write down things and people that I'm thankful for. I speak them
mhm.
out loud every single day. So having a constant attitude of gratitude, literally having an attitude of gratitude, can change any terrible situation into a situation that is much better. No matter how tragic it is, if you find at least one thing to be thankful for, automatically the situation improves.
That's awesome. I definitely believe that. I talk to a lot of my clients and I'd let them know, good and bad coexist. It's all about what you choose to look at. You can see the bad in the situation or you can see the good. And a lot of times, if you stay on that good plane, there's always some good things that continue to be manifested for you rather than seeking out the bad that has you seeing the bad and everything. So I totally get that and being able to resonate with that. So, for somebody watching who, has experienced a loss of a child, what is something that you would like to tell them right now?
Well, first I would say understand that, and this is just, I think, for everybody in general, for who has ever suffered loss, because I think 2020 was a year of loss. We all lost something, or we lost someone. So I just think that
Okay. Technical difficulties, guys. Gotta love it. So we will stand by momentarily to see if he is in. Here he is. Back again. Gotta love this technology, right?
Yeah, and I know, right? I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, some technical thing because it was on my side and yours. But
Yeah, that's good.
got to give a shout out to StreamYard. If this was Zoom, the whole thing would have crashed, right? But StreamYard will keep the clock ticking and keep everything going. So, you were answering the question for someone who has lost a child. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say first of all, grief is a thumbprint, so it's unique to the individual, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that you're gonna feel a certain way at any given time. So like grief comes in waves. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that wave will just crash onto your toes, and other times it's gonna be above your head and you're gonna feel like you're drowning. And you never know when that next wave is gonna hit. And you can never be fully prepared for it because anything could trigger that wave. But the best thing that you can choose to do in those situations is embrace how you feel and let those feelings out and not keep them to yourself. And understand that it's okay to be sad and still grieving, whether it's 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years later, it's still okay to feel how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Just embrace that and just give yourself grace and know that the reason you grieve is because you still love. If you didn't love, you wouldn't grieve. So grief is just a sign of love. It's love with no place to go. And you miss your loved one, and that's completely okay. And understand that when you choose to heal, you're going to not only be honoring to the person that you miss, you're going to be honoring yourself and your family. So healing is so important. Just be patient in that process.
That was beautiful. So love, grief is love with no place to go. That was awesome. I'm blown away with that. That was really a good answer. I'm telling you, I've never heard that before. So that is awesome. So, now you are a coach, and you're sharing your story with other people. What else is down the road for you?
Man, there's so many things that I want to do and aspire to have, and one of the big things that I plan on doing for 2022 is having my own live event, so that's going to be some other people collaborating with a conference. That's going to be I think a big thing, and it's going to, I'm looking forward to when that happens. Next year is I believe when I feel led to make it work. So conference is another big thing. Working on another book right now currently, so that's another thing in the more near future that I'm working on.
That is awesome. Now, so tell everybody again the name of your book and where they can get it.
So the name of the book is Losing Faith, Finding Hope. You can find it on Amazon.com, or people can order from me directly online. If people want to connect with me on Clubhouse, which is Jesse Cruz Speaks, same on Instagram or on Facebook, LinkedIn, or barnesandnoble.com. Those are all ways to get the book online, or you can contact me directly on social media.
Awesome. So this has just been a great conversation. I so appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your story. I think that is so important because oftentimes we don't see the real story behind the highlight reels. People see your book and they're like, oh, he's a best-selling author, he's a speaker, and they sometimes don't even know what the books are about. So I appreciate you sharing. And I want to give you the opportunity to share some final thoughts with the audience.
Absolutely. My final thought would be this, is that even though you have faced a setback, a loss, a painful event in your life, nothing that you've ever done and nothing that's ever been done to you disqualifies you from your dream. What it actually does is prepares you for your dream, your purpose, your plan, and your path. Nothing can disqualify you. The only thing disqualifies you could be your choice to give up on the dream. Everything else is just preparation for it.
Great words. Well, we just want to thank you so much, Jesse, for spending some time with us. And those of you that are watching, if you have any questions, reach out to Jesse. Get a copy of his book on Amazon. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. In the meantime, share this video. It's a great opportunity for him to get some exposure, for him to reach other parents who have suffered loss and just need an outlet, an understanding, and the ability to see that life does get better by seeing someone else who has experienced loss and they are now moving forward and being in a place to where they can serve others and having a life of fulfillment. So we want to thank you all for watching. Thanks again, Jesse, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks again.
Awesome. Well, we will see you all on the next episode. Bye for now, everybody.